the word. And even if this is all just part of a plan, I still feel the urge to play my part, so to speak.
Okay, if that's your part, do you believe that I will end up in hell?
I don't know. You were talking about this earlier. This is very interesting. For a start, maybe, because it does say in the Bible, God has pre-planned people to go to hell. And St. Paul, after that, says he uses we can't judge the pot, can't judge the potter. I mean, he says, this sounds rather harsh, does it not? But who are you to judge what God's plan is? At the same time, I'm not really sure of hell, because we can see in the Bible the prophecy, or the promises of a new world coming. I've discussed this with the Jehovah's Witnesses as well. It's kind of a tough issue, because we have some scripture pertaining to hell. We have some other scripture kind of suggesting us that dualism isn't as such, that we actually do need brains to exist, and Christ will come in the second coming and rejuvenate the brains and resurrect all the dead bodies, and thus the brains will come back. Other verses of hell actually speak about it as if it's a purification. At one point, St. Paul says that hell is like fire, and he compares it to people having their houses burnt down. They escape their houses and they're changed, but it's not fatal. So I'm trying to figure this out myself now. It is possible that you could still end up in hell, because as I said with the first thing I said, it does say in the Bible that, yes, God has actually planned people to go to hell.
Okay, but that brings up my point, is that if God... Okay, that kind of explains the omnipotence part, but it doesn't explain the omnibenevolence either. If God plans people to go to hell, that would obviously, by definition, make him some sort of sadist. And if God is a sadist,
standards,
in
yes,
that definition, then I wouldn't be able to even if I was proven that God existed, and if he predetermined people to go to hell, I wouldn't be able to revere a person that could sit back and directly judge people to go to hell because of his own scripting, to use your analogy. It's just odd. I mean, we've gone past omnipotence, we're on to omnibenevolence, and then from there we've got omniscience. However you want to explain that.
You're looking at it from a human point of view, and indeed it would be sort of sadistic from a human point of view to create something just to torture it, but this is just our human minds thinking here. We might suddenly be endowed with a whole new bunch of sensibilities in celestial brains, should they exist, where we'd understand the whole purpose for this, and it would make sense to us why people are, being created to go to hell.
So you'd say that because I think in a humanistic way that I'm wrong, but if I was to think in some sort of way that God was thinking, that torturing people is a good thing. That is essentially what you're saying. Torturing people is a good thing. Not in a humanistic sense, but in God's sense. That is what you just said.
Well, no, not necessarily torture, because, again, like I said, there was that example of hell being used where it's sort of a purification. And not just a purification, but it's kind of it's what happens to everyone. It's not just those non-believing, but it's what happens to everyone. I don't subscribe to eternal torture myself. I don't think that sounds right. And that's why I tend to lean towards what the Jehovah's Witnesses are proposing.
Okay. Again, it brings me back to the point of if purification was required, just for some people, what is the what's the word? I'm just going to use requirements for people to have to be purified, and what would you need to do to not be purified? And in this sense, then saying that, then God is saying you're going to be purified, you're not going to be purified, but it's God's plan that those who are going to be purified are going to need to be purified. So in that sense, even if they needed to be purified, it's because of God's own will. Again, it's saying to use an analogy, if I had a bucket of water and a bucket of dirt, I throw a bucket of water at one person, they're clean. I throw a bucket of dirt at another person, they need to go get hosed down, possibly painfully, with a heavy hose. That is my own decision, and surely God can just say everyone can go into one place, or they can all go into another place, and you need to be able to make that definition and that distinction between the two. Whatever happens, regardless of not of hell, heaven, or anything like that, it is all part of God's plan. And I just think you're running around in circles here. To be fair, mate, I'm not meaning to disregard your opinion or like that. It just seems like you're running around in circles saying, no, God's not sadistic. He does this for purification that is going to go in heaven regardless. And then you're just avoiding the point that it is all in God's plan, and why is it required for hell to even exist if it is all in God's plan?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I can't comprehend what a celestial mind thinks. I can only try and comprehend what a celestial brain is capable of. And admittedly, yes, it seems odd. It doesn't quite make sense, but then we're looking at it using human brains that we have. So that's why it would be difficult to comprehend, as I said, the celestial mind.
No, it wouldn't be just difficult. It would be near. No, it wouldn't even be near. It would be physically impossible for us to comprehend. So therefore, what would be the point of having a Bible or any other holy book at all in order to try and explain it? There would be no possibility of a human brain to understand God's will, nor what God would want or doesn't want. Therefore, it would disprove. Well, it would actually just get rid of the necessity of a holy book at all.
Well, because of the holy book, I was able to pray, and I believe I got some good telepathic readings. And even though this is a human brain, through these experiences I had, I thought that validated that there was indeed a God out there. If we can die and go to our celestial brains, then we'll be able to comprehend it. And that the human brain is kind of a gateway part that we can at least, accept that it exists, and that's a gateway to attaining celestial brains and minds, and then understanding entirely what this was all about.
I know what you're trying to say is that God moves in mysterious ways. We'll never be able to understand it until we're up in heaven or in hell, until after we die, which I think is a bit of a cop-out, because we can never prove what happens after we die. That's the entire point of religion, in my opinion. But in saying that, it doesn't. If we would never be able to comprehend it, then we will never. There will be no point of a book. And getting onto another argument against the necessity of a holy book, why was a book required at all? Why are people not just instantly embedded with this information upon birth? I'd like you to answer that, please.
Well, I suppose God's just having some fun. In the same way that when we write stories, we don't have all our characters be ideally what we'd like in life. We create sort of controversies, and we have our characters do some things we don't approve of, and then we might have the good characters amend it. You see, we do it for a purpose, and it would be boring if we just had every character be doing what we want.
The one thing I would have to say about that is that these characters are fictional. We can do whatever we want to them. It will have no real life consequences. If God does that to us, we will have these consequences. There will be pain and suffering for the bad things He does. For example, creating just because it's recent Osama bin Laden, and it was His will that he did the things that he did. God's will. That's my point.
It's like getting a doll. Say we're the doll, and getting a doll, picking up its arm and punching another doll in the face, and say you just punch that person in the face, you are going to be put in the bin or be burnt or something like that. That would make no sense to me, because it would remove the possibility of humans ever having free will.
Yeah, well, this is quite rare. We don't have free will. I realise this is not the best comparison, because unlike fictional characters, we are indeed conscious. But it was just an example of why doesn't he endow us with the sensibilities to detect him.
I just posted
Yeah,
something.
do you guys mind if I interject here? Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure, go on ahead. You haven't said anything while I was wondering what happened to you.
Well, no, I'm still here. I'm just trying to remain silent because I know I talk too much, right? So,
Not enough. Not enough.
Warrior, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
That'd be fine. Just please don't hit on me.
I'll try my best, man.
I tried my hardest
Okay.
not to.
The first one I want to ask, I mean, they're going to seem like infantile questions, but it's building up to a premise that I'm trying to ascend. The first question is, you essentially believe that a God exists, yes?
I would hope that would be clear by now. Yes.
I would assume so too. I know. I consider it, it's something that should be out of the way at this point, but nonetheless, I still wanted to establish that, okay? The next question is, this God that you perceive, he cares if we believe in him, yes?
So it would seem.
Okay. And this God can also do whatever he wants, yes?